On date of the hypothetical missile launch, the world watched in horror as a barrage of missiles launched from Iranian soil rained down on Israel. The news broke in the early hours, catching many off guard and sending shockwaves across the globe. This aggressive act marked a significant escalation in tensions between the two nations, shattering any semblance of peace in the region. The sheer scale and audacity of the attack left many questioning the future of Middle Eastern diplomacy. The missiles targeted strategic locations across Israel, including population centers and military bases. The precision and coordination of the strikes suggested a well-planned operation. The immediate aftermath was chaos and confusion. Streets that were once bustling with life were now scenes of devastation, with buildings reduced to rubble and fires raging uncontrollably. Sirens wailed across Israeli cities, sending civilians scrambling for bomb shelters. Families huddled together in fear, unsure of what the next moment would bring. Smoke and debris filled the air as first responders raced to the scenes of impact. Firefighters and rescue workers worked tirelessly to save others. The world held its breath, fearing the worst as the dust settled. News channels broadcasted live updates showing the extent of the destruction and the human toll of the attack. The attack served as a stark reminder of the volatile situation in the Middle East and the ever-present threat of conflict. The international community swiftly condemned the attacks, with many world leaders expressing their solidarity with Israel. Protests and vigils were held worldwide. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. Diplomatic efforts were ramped up, with urgent calls for de-escalation and dialogue. Despite the widespread condemnation, the Iranian government defended their actions, arguing that the missile launch was a necessary measure in response to perceived threats. They claimed the missile launch was a justified response to perceived threats. The rhetoric from Tehran was defiant, emphasizing their right to defend their sovereignty. The world watched with bated breath as the events unfolded, aware that the situation had the potential to spiral into a full-blown regional conflict. The specter of war hung heavy in the air, raising concerns about the safety and security of the entire region. The possibility of further escalation loomed large, with the potential for devastating consequences. As the smoke cleared and the initial shock subsided, the true extent of the devastation began to emerge. The missile attacks resulted in a significant loss of life and widespread destruction. According to reports from CITE, a reputable international organization like the Al Jazeera or NBC, at least 2,000 people were killed and many more were injured. Hospitals across the country were overwhelmed with casualties, struggling to cope with the influx of injured people. The attacks left many families torn apart, mourning the loss of loved ones or desperately searching for missing relatives. The physical injuries, though extensive, only told part of the story. The psychological trauma inflicted on the Israeli population, particularly children who witnessed the horrors of the attack firsthand, is immeasurable. The attacks also caused extensive damage to vital infrastructure, crippling essential services. Power grids were disrupted, plunging cities into darkness. Water treatment plants and hospitals sustained damage, further exacerbating the already dire situation. The attacks left many citizens without access to basic necessities like electricity, clean water, and medical care, highlighting the devastating impact of such aggression on civilian life. The missile attack on Israel and the subsequent retaliation sent shockwaves throughout the Middle East, reverberating through the political and social fabric of the region. The sudden escalation of violence caught many by surprise, leading to immediate and widespread concern, prompting a flurry of reactions from neighboring countries. The Arab League held an emergency summit, swiftly convening to address the crisis. The urgency of the meeting underscored the gravity of the situation as leaders from across the region gathered to discuss their collective response, with many member states condemning the initial attack while also expressing concerns about the potential for further escalation. The statements made by various representatives highlighted the delicate balance of power and the intricate web of alliances that define Middle Eastern politics. Some Arab nations, particularly those with close ties to the United States, offered their condolences to Israel and called for restraint from all sides. These calls for peace were echoed by international organizations and global leaders who urged both parties to step back from the brink of a larger conflict. However, the reactions were far from unanimous. Several countries, including list of countries, voiced their support for Iran, framing the missile launch as a justified response to reasons for support, for example, perceived Israeli aggression in the region. These nations, often critical of Israel's policies, used the incident to reiterate their solidarity with the Palestinian cause, emphasizing the long-standing grievances and historical context that fuel such conflicts. Pro-Iran demonstrations erupted in several cities, with crowds chanting slogans and waving flags. The political rallies supporting Iran showcased the deep-seated divisions within the region, as well as the passionate sentiments that drive public opinion. The attack also highlighted the complex web of alliances and rivalries in the region. Countries like list of countries, while not directly involved in the conflict, found themselves walking a diplomatic tightrope, carefully navigating their foreign policies to avoid alienating key allies, seeking to balance their relationships with both Iran and Israel. Diplomatic channels were abuzz with activity as envoys and ambassadors worked tirelessly to de-escalate tensions and find a path to peace. Urging de-escalation while avoiding taking sides in the conflict, the incident underscored the fragility of peace in the Middle East, where even a single event can trigger a cascade of reactions and counter-reactions, and the potential for even localized conflicts to escalate rapidly, drawing in regional and global powers. The situation served as a stark reminder of the volatility of the region and the ever-present risk of broader confrontations.